number of Jewish leaders here who thought that Jewish cultural identity and Yiddishkeit needs to be promoted. And the Kadima was formed. There was a fight with the Zionists and the Polizian specifically there about that. Eventually what prevailed was a sort of Bundist feeling, a secularist Jewish Yiddishkeit feeling. And it was only really when Yankov Vaks came in 1940 from overseas that the Bund really took off as a separate organisation. Before that it had a more cultural and Yiddish leaning.
Together with Senator Burstein, who arrived in Melbourne in 1928 and was among the founding members of the Bundische Gruppe in Melbourne, they became key members of the Bund in Melbourne and of the Melbourne Jewish community at large. There's no doubt that Bundisten played a key role in establishing and maintaining the Yiddish Sunday schools of Melbourne, and later Shalom Aleichem College, which is Melbourne's only secular Yiddish day school. For many of the early Melbourne Bundisten, this was a natural progression from the Tzisho schools in Poland. Even today, many of the Yiddish and Jewish studies teachers at Shalom Aleichem College are products of the Bund and Skiff.
Jewish Welfare Society, Bundists were always there. The Kadima, Bundists were always prevalent in running. The baggage that our parents brought, we inherited, and we used it and built these institutions.
The youth movement Skiff was born out of a need to educate kids. Post-war, it was, I know stories about the first Skiff camp in Poland after the war, where every day there were busloads and trainloads of people arriving, and people were reunited, siblings who didn't know that each other was still alive, and that dijou in those days was actually guard duty with a gun. Obviously, when it came to Australia, there wasn't a need for all of that, but there was a need, I think, for them to have a place where Jewish kids with those values that weren't religious could learn Yiddish, speak Yiddish, discuss political issues, because the Bund is a political organisation. Skiff was really important in me fostering my Jewish identity, because it wasn't going to be religion, so it was about the ideologies of Skiff.
From the moment you join Skiff to the moment you exit, you come out really focused on Skiff's three main ideologies, Chavashaf, Yiddishkeit and Doikheit. None of them are ever neglected. I know me now, Yiddish has become a very important part of my life. Skiff made me realize the importance of Yiddish, not just as a tool of language, but also as something that preserves culture that, Skiff holds so dearly. It also made me really critically challenge social justice issues around the world. I really think I'm very well versed to talk about, and I have a very strong, well-rounded opinion because of how I grew up at Skiff.
Skiff was everything. I lived for Skiff. So for me, the greatest gift that I could give my kids was Skiff. And to see them both come through it, and one's already been a helper and one is currently a helper, that's just Yad's pants for me.
There's a sort of circle of life happening with Skiff, and oh yeah, I know this thing we do at Skiff, my parents did that, or we sing songs at meals, and a child might be like, oh, my mum actually wrote that song, and to me that's always really amazing. When people leave Skiff, it instills a value in them and ignites a fire for them to pursue whatever they'd like. And all of my Yiddish teachers that I've had from primary school to high school to uni have all had some sort of connection to Skiff or the Bund. I know plenty of ex-Helfer who were my Helfer, who are teachers or historians, or really do stuff that's very relevant to Skiff. So in that regard, I think Skiff really inspires people to sort of find their pathways in lives.
The Skiff, the fact that they can generate 80 to 90 kids at summer camps and have 40 to 50 children coming on a Sunday at Skiff, some 70 years after it all started here in Melbourne, is really a phenomenon of the golden acate, the golden chain of life.
Skiff has always played a key role in ensuring a multi-generational Bundist community in Melbourne. Our Skiffisten become our Helfer, and our Helfer become our next Bundist leaders. We're at the forefront of creating and mentoring the next leaders of the Melbourne Jewish community and the wider community at large. We also foster our younger leadership through Jugendbund.
At Skiff we were always performing. On camps, off camps, there were big productions that were always being put on, and with Sluggo directing. I remember being 8 and being in this big production in the Kadima. There was always theatre going on, and there was always, ghetto commemorations.
The 19th of April, the commemoration was really important, and this is where a friend of mine, Charles Sluggo Sluky, and myself got involved in both participating in it and then organising, managing, conducting and writing the script for them with the help of 2 wonderful people. I have to mention Romek Mokotov and Dobka Abelovich, who always had this sensitivity about not shocking the audience. About Holocaust could be shocking, and we could have always presented material that was somewhat deep and not offensive, but certainly heartbreaking to the audience. It was about bringing that sensitivity both in the material we used and the way it was portrayed and conducted.
The In One Voice concert was originally Concert in the Park, and it came from a group of ex-Skiffisten who had a mother's group with their kids who went on to become Skiffisten and Helfer, and they used to sing Yiddish songs together and they used to talk, and they came up with this idea. And so it used to be in Caulfield Park, and there was 1 stage in the beginning, then 2 stages, so there were performances that went on, and there was also that kind of market thing where all the Jewish organisations could have stalls. Much to the horror of a lot of the other Jewish organisations who love to hate Skiff, the concert in the park was like the biggest Jewish event in the Southern Hemisphere in terms of the numbers of people who came. And there was one year when the Prime Minister of Australia, Bob Hawke, came and wore a Skiff t-shirt. I mean, that was just classic.
Today, the Bund in Melbourne continues to live out our core ideologies through our various activities. In One Voice, for example, is a celebration of Doyekate. On the political front, we remain a voice for the voiceless. And we, of course, continue to promote Yiddish and secular Yiddishkeit, including our own Yiddish choir, the Milkomenon Choir. We are also a co-sponsor of the annual Yiddish Sofwoch Australia, a weekend away where all activities are conducted in Yiddish. The Bund's yearly calendar is packed with events that reflect these values, including the annual Bonavina Memorial Lecture.
This runs in our blood, and we will participate because that's our doyekate. That's our making sure that secular Jewish identity will stay strong and pragmatic in Melbourne.
On Sundays, the Nazis used to gather at the Yarra Banks. And of course, Bonner, together with other Holocaust survivors, went there to oppose them. And the story that circulated was that as the fights broke out, Bonner grabbed one of the bikers, the Nazis often were bikers, and grabbed one of the motorbikes and threw it in the Yarra River.